Class is in session, hitting the books college basketball show Wednesday, March 19th. It is Ian Cameron with you. No Connor Mack. Cox Cable is at it again in Las Vegas, Nevada. Unfortunately, our guy is having some internet connection problems for the millionth time because of this godforsaken cable company that he has in that city. And we'll try to get him on, though, before the end of the show. He's trying to get it fixed with them, and hopefully we'll get to see our guy, C-Mac, before the end of the show, because this is our last show of the week. We're not going to be on tomorrow or Friday. We're going to take the next 2 days off while the tournament first round is ongoing. That's why we did the Thursday games on yesterday's show. So if you missed it, we talked every Thursday NCAA tournament game on yesterday's show, and we did the first four, obviously, on Monday. So if you missed the talk about the two games tonight, go back to Monday's show and watch that. Today, it's about the Friday first round games. We'll talk about all of the Friday first round games. We're off tomorrow. We're off Friday. And then we will be back with you Saturday morning and Sunday morning this weekend at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific for the round of 32. So that is the schedule moving forward. Let's get into it. And hopefully C-Mac will be able to join us at some point. Let's start with a game that we weren't able to talk about yesterday. This is actually a Thursday game, but obviously we had to wait to see who was going to win last night in the first four, and we found out it was Alabama State. What a game that was with them in St. Francis, PA, down to the wire, and Alabama State wins it on a layup with a second to go. And now they are in the first round and on their way to Lexington, Kentucky, and unfortunately, their reward is the Auburn Tigers, the overall number one seed in the tournament. Auburn 32-point favorites, 149.5 being the total here in this game. Sorry, I've got that messed up there. That's on the screen. 32, not 19.5 is what it should be. There we go. Auburn 32-point favorites, and again, 149.5 the total in this game. Huge number, obviously, and Auburn has clearly got an athletic advantage. I think the thing that concerns me about Alabama State, and great coaching job by Tony Madlock this year with Alabama State. But I think one of the things that concerns me here is Alabama State is going to play up tempo, which may not exactly bode well for them against Auburn here, which obviously just has significant depth advantages, athleticism advantages all over the board. That being said, Auburn did not play their best basketball down the stretch of the season, without a doubt. And it is going to be their first game. Alabama State on the adrenaline of winning in the first four, getting a game in tournament action under their belt. I could see this being a game where maybe in the first half, Alabama does hang around just a little bit, but I do worry about them maybe hitting that physical wall in the second half against this very athletic, obviously a very good defensive team when they're on as well, that they just put the clamps down on Auburn as this game goes on. But I did take a small piece of Alabama State plus 19.5 in the first half in this game. I think it's a situation that they can at least, running on the adrenaline of the big win last night, maybe catch Auburn a little flat-footed. It is an in-state game, obviously, when you're talking about Alabama State and Auburn as well. So I think that's really going to fire up the kids from Alabama State. And like I say, if you're Auburn, because, this is a team maybe that hasn't played their best, and they have gotten off to some slow starts here in some of their recent games, I think this is not the worst situational consideration here by any stretch to maybe look at Alabama State in the first half here, plus 19.5. But I don't know if I would want to trust them for the full game. This could be one of those games where they're down by 15, 16 at the half, and then Auburn just runs them out in the second half and wears them down, and they could win this game by, 35, 38 and cover the full game number. So I feel like Alabama State plus the 19.5 in the first half is not a bad look. But I definitely, if I'm betting Alabama State here at all, I'm only looking first half because I do think Auburn could wear them down later in the game. All right, let's go to Friday now. The Friday game starting with Baylor and Mississippi State. Mississippi State 1-point favorites, 144.5 the total in this game. I think what's interesting to look at here with this game is that, Mississippi State in years past under Chris Jans and really years past with the way this team has played, they've been offensively challenged at times. There's no question about that. I think this year's team has solved a lot of those issues. What's been the problem for Mississippi State is, yes, while their shooting has gotten better and their offensive game has gotten better, led, of course, by the great Josh Hubbard, who's outstanding for this team offensively. He's their best player. The offense is he's the catalyst, no doubt, for this team. But overall, I mean, they definitely have a better offensive team, but their defense has not been as good. And that's been something that they've basically hung their hat on in past years, and they haven't been that same defensive team. So an improved offensive team and shooting team and a worse defensive team down the stretch, Mississippi State. It's a big reason why you look at their last 9 games, and the trend is 7-2 to the over in those games for Mississippi State. Also, actually, it could be 8-1 to the over, depending on what number you got in the SEC tournament in their game against Missouri. So we'll see how this one plays out, but they haven't been the same defensive team. Baylor is a team that did not play great in the Big 12, although they did have some good non-conference results, and it's really what bolstered their ability to be in this tournament. You know, they beat St. John's in overtime on a neutral court. You know, they lost by 4 at UConn. That was their big one, the win against St. John's on a neutral, but they were competitive against UConn. They ended up beating Arkansas on a neutral court early in the season as well. They had some decent results. When I look at this Baylor team, you know, I thought the talent was there with Norshad Omier, VJ Edgecombe, obviously Langston Love, Robert O'Wright. There's some good talent on this team as well. Jaden Nunn, Jeremy Roach. But they just haven't put it all together. And we know Scott Drew has obviously had success in the tournament in the past. You remember years ago with the title. But I'll say this right now. Baylor's one of those teams that maybe underachieved in the season. I don't know if I'll move on Baylor, but I'm kind of leaning to Baylor here. You know, Mississippi State just too all over the map for me. Not good enough on the defensive end. But what I like even more here is the over. You know, Mississippi State overs were a big staple of mine down the stretch, and I understand fully why we've seen the total jump from 142.5 to 144.5. I think an over could be the way to go as far as the total in this matchup. All right, Norfolk State, Florida. Florida, 28.5 point favorites, 153.5 the total. With all due respect to the overall number 1 seed Auburn, there is no team playing better entering this tournament than Florida. St. John's is right there. Probably as the team that's playing the next best ball next to Florida, but I think Florida is playing the absolute best, and I only say that is to give Florida the edge over St. John's because Florida plays in the tougher conference, top to bottom. So that's why I'm saying I think Florida is playing the absolute best going into this tournament. So impressed with the Gators. Todd Golden, an outstanding coaching job. They've got inside, outside balance. They defend. They hit the glass. What don't they make their free throws? What does this team not do well? They seem to do everything well, and they're playing absolutely fantastic. I don't trust Norfolk State to hang in this game. The question is Florida going to win by enough of a margin to cover this number? And the only thing I'm leery of with Florida is the fact that they won the SEC tournament championship on Sunday. They have to turn around and play on a Friday, you know, here. So that's the only thing that I hesitate on. But Norfolk State is not a team that I'm sure this is not the Norfolk State team that upset Missouri a decade ago. I don't think they've got that ability. You look at some of these non-conference results. At Stanford, they lose by 7. At Grand Canyon, they lose by 18. They've had some ugly results. They lose by 25 at Baylor. And I would say Florida is a lot better than those teams as well. They did lose by 15 and covered at Tennessee, so that's not a bad result here for Norfolk State, but I think it's just the way Florida's going. I don't want to tempt fate going against them. This could be a game, too, where if that Florida defense is on point, and that's what's been spectacular about the Gators. We knew last year they could score, but the defense wasn't very good. This year they've improved so much at that end of the court that it could be a tough time for Norfolk State to get easy baskets here. So, like I said, this is one game I could see getting ugly, but just based on the fact Florida's got the Sunday to Friday turnaround, that's what kept me off laying this many points. All right, Oklahoma, UConn. We've got UConn 5.5 point favorites, 147.5 the total. It's one of those games here where I've got Oklahoma plus the points in this game, but I've got UConn to get to the Sweet 16. And you're saying, what the hell are you thinking there? Well, what I'm thinking there is that UConn could get beat here, but UConn could also win this game, look what good, and all of a sudden maybe that UConn magic starts to come back to them. Now, I don't expect them to be national champions for a third straight year, but you don't want to undersell Dan Hurley, who's obviously had great success in the tournament the last 2 years. I still believe they're missing a lot of the pieces that made this UConn team great, the last couple of years. And I don't think it's just going to be simple enough to just them flip the switch here in the tournament. But that being said, down the stretch, outside of the loss against Creighton, we did start to see this team put things together and play some better basketball. The win against Marquette was very impressive. No doubt about that. And the key for them down the stretch was they did start to play a little bit better, because I think the thing with them is we started to see Caravan get his confidence going a little bit. Obviously, Solo Ball was a good offensive catalyst. Liam McNeely, his return, the freshman, midway through the season, has really helped UConn get better. But I like Oklahoma as a team and the way they finished the season. You look at, they were able to beat Missouri, Texas, lose by 3 at Ole Miss, lose by 1 to Kentucky down the stretch, lose by 1 again against Kentucky in the late goings of that SEC tournament game. They have covered 7 straight coming into this game. So the way I see it, UConn could get bounced here, but UConn could also win here. And if they do, they're confident and they're dangerous in the round of 32 if they win this game. So that's why I went with this approach. I took Oklahoma because I think they don't match up that badly with UConn, plus 5.5. But in case UConn does advance and win this game, I also took a shot with them to get to the Sweet 16, at plus money, which I thought was worth a look. And an even smaller sprinkle on them to win the region. I know it could be crazy talk, because everything your eye test tells you is that they're not as good this year. But it's still a defending 2-time champion. It's still Danny Hurley, who's done a phenomenal job the last 2 years, who's proven himself to be an excellent NCAA tournament coach on short prep. It's the things you don't want to overlook necessarily here with UConn going into this one. Total could go either way. As far as this one goes, 147.5 is where this total is. But UConn's gotten back to playing some better defense down the stretch. So 5 straight unders for UConn entering this game. Kind of the opposite for Oklahoma. They kind of trended over down the stretch. So that's why I don't have a strong opinion on the total here. All right, New Mexico and Marquette. We've got Marquette 4-point favorites, 153.5 the total. I think the very, very important thing to point out here in this game is that Marquette is from the Big East. New Mexico head coach Richard Pitino, his dad, Rick Pitino, yes, coaches St. John's from the Big East. There is no doubt in my mind Rick Pitino is helping his son out, his kid, Richard Pitino, and giving him all the insight and all the intel and all the scouting report and all the ways to try to beat Marquette, that he can. So there's no doubt at some point between Selection Sunday and this game on Friday, there's going to be some kind of meeting with father and son Pitino, and they're going to talk about how the hell do we beat this Marquette. And Richard's going to ask Pops, hey, Pops, you had success against Marquette this year. You beat them twice. How do we do it? That conversation is happening. And I think that's possibly a little bit of an intangible edge here for New Mexico going into this game a little bit. You got to think New Mexico remembers last year. I think a lot of people thought highly of New Mexico going into the tournament last year. And we also remember that they laid an absolute egg, a complete and utter friggin' dud of a performance in the first round of the tournament last year when they got routed by Utah State in the tournament. Not Utah State last year. Sorry, my bad. It was Clemson, 77-56. 21-point loss to the Clemson Tigers last year for New Mexico in that very first tournament game. Marquette actually got bounced I believe in their first tournament game too, but I don't think it was as bad the loss as what we saw from New Mexico. Like, they were non-competitive. New Mexico was absolutely obliterated in that game last year. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of situation we get here. Actually, you know what? Marquette got to the Sweet 16 last year before losing to NC State. Remember the crazy run that Kevin Keats' team went on last year. But Marquette won their first 2 tournament games, and then they ended up losing in the Sweet 16 last year to NC State. But I think I like New Mexico here, +4 in this game. Here's the problem with New Mexico, and there's another Mountain West team I like on the Friday slate we're going to talk about. The Mountain West has really done bad in this tournament the last 2 years. Like, it's really starting to become concerning. Last year they weren't any good in the tournament. Saw what happened to San Diego State last night. They got absolutely trounced by North Carolina. So you start to worry that is this going to be another rough NCAA tournament showing for the Mountain West. That does bother me a little bit. But net San Diego State was never really that good down the stretch. I still think New Mexico and the other team we're going to talk about later are a notch or two better than San Diego State. Now, again, maybe it's just an issue with this particular conference, but I don't like handicapping that way. I like handicapping the individual rosters, the matchups, the intangibles, like I said. And I think having Rick Pitino as his dad, who saw Marquette a ton this year and last year for that matter, to really help him diagnose a way to beat this team, I think that does matter here. And they're supposed to have great guard play, New Mexico, and that's wins you games here at this time of year with Donovan Dent and Nelly Jr. Joseph. So I'm going to take a shot here with New Mexico +4. Yes, I'm concerned about the Mountain West futility, but I'm still going to take them here in this game +4 on the Lobos. High total, I lean over. Not one of my favorite totals, but I still lean in that direction. All right, next up, we've got Bryant and Michigan State. Michigan State, 17.5-point favorites, 152.5 the total. Bryant has some talent, and I think this is just a few too many points, so I'm going to make the case here for Bryant. I don't think they're going to win, although nothing would shock you, but I don't see that happening. Michigan State was on a major heater with 8 straight wins before losing in the Big Ten tournament semifinal to Wisconsin. But I want to point out how talented Bryant is. Okay, they are a very talented bunch. Earl Timberlake, no relation to Justin, 17 points in the win against Maine. He's an excellent player, can do a bunch of different things. Connor Withers, Rafael Pinzone, Barry Evans, Keyshawn Mitchell. They have multiple scores. I mean, Michigan State's going to have to be on their toes in this game. They can't just assume this is going to be a cakewalk here against Bryant. Now, Bryant in that gym on their home court has been extremely strong. They haven't been nearly that same way on the road. I guess that would be the one thing that concerns you. When you look at their non-con schedule, another thing that I guess would concern you is they weren't really tested by too many teams. The two that they were tested by as far as tournament-bound foes, Grand Canyon, they lost by 46 on the road, and then they lost at St. John's by 22. So maybe they're just in it over their head just a little bit, but Bryant's pretty talented. I'm not quite there with 17.5 laying this kind of a number. Bryant's going to push tempo. They're a very fast-paced team. I think Michigan State's going to probably try to get this game more into the half court. It's going to be interesting to see who wins out. I was lined up to bet over here, but I think the total's in a pretty good spot. All right, Vanderbilt and St. Mary's. We've got St. Mary's 4-point favorites, 135.5 the total in this game. This is a tough one for me because everything I see with my eyes says I think maybe St. Mary's this time around might be ready to go on a bit of a run in the NCAA tournament. But Mark Byington's a heck of a coach. He won a tournament game with James Madison last year. And this team from the mighty SEC, 4-point underdog. Do you really want to fade them? Lay points against an SEC team and a well-coached one like Vanderbilt is. The problem is there's no comparison defensively. Vanderbilt, the one issue they still have is getting stops. They're not a great defensive team, but they've got obviously Jason Edwards and A.J. Hoggard, Tyler Nickel, Devin McLaughlin. They've got an array of shooters, an array of scorers. But what St. Mary's is going to do is try to force Vanderbilt into the half court, and hopefully thinking that if we do this, that's where maybe we can have our way and Vanderbilt can run into issues. It is worth noting in non-conference play, Vanderbilt faced, to be honest with you, a good amount of weaker teams. Their best non-conference opponent was Drake on a neutral court, November the 24th, and they lost that game as 4.5-point favorites, 81-70. So, yes, the non-conference record is good for Vanderbilt, but they didn't exactly test themselves overall. I got to admit, this game is one of the toughest for me because everything I see with St. Mary's tells me I think they might be ready. Their defense is impeccable. I know they finally lost to Gonzaga in the WCC tournament championship after beating them twice before that, but the defense has still been great. The Augustus Marcelonis is a phenomenal player, leading them, anchoring them. for sure, and certainly an offensive catalyst as well. I just don't feel comfortable laying 4 against Vandy. It's that simple. Vandy has been high on my radar all year. I've liked everything I've seen from this Vanderbilt team for much of the year, and I would just not at all be shocked by any stretch of the imagination if Vandy takes this game down to the wire. So tough game. Didn't really want to fade either team, but I'll just give a slightest of nods here to take in the 4.5 with Vanderbilt. Robert Morris in Alabama. Alabama 23-point favorites, 165.5 being the total in this game. Bobby Morris, what a run for them. They were a young team. They weren't even projected anywhere close to winning the Horizon League, but here they are now in the tournament, winning the Horizon League and facing Alabama. It'll be interesting to see how they fare here in this particular matchup. But, Robert Morris, the one thing I noticed that stands out a little bit about Robert Morris here going into this game is that, you look at their, hold on, let me just see. Yeah, their 3-point percentage defense, Robert Morris, it's middle of the pack. And obviously, when you're talking about middle of the pack, not exactly what you're looking to see here when you're talking about, obviously, a 3-point volume shooting team here like the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I just don't know how many stops Robert Morris is going to get here in this game. I know in the Horizon League, we saw this team at times play good defensively, but there were also times where they struggled and gave up 70s and 80s in some games and had to outscore teams as well. And I think Alabama could be a multifaceted offensive nightmare for them. Play their. And another thing, too, is Robert Morris doesn't exactly always slow things down. Plays in Alabama's hands here a little bit. So this could be one of those games where, now Grant Nelson was banged up at the end of the SEC tournament for Alabama. We'll have to see how fully healthy he is. But obviously when you've got Chris Youngblood, LeBaron Fillion, and of course the great Mark Sears, it's a lot you got to deal with on the defensive end of the court. I like the over more than anything. I know it is a very high total here when it comes to Robert Morris in Alabama, 165.5, but I think it goes over. How many times have we said this with Alabama? These games, even in the 160s, 170s, are finding their way over the total. It would not surprise me if this is more of the same. Look who's here. Cox Cable has decided to cooperate and has allowed us to be graced by the presence of my right-hand man, my partner in crime, Connor Mack, in the house.
Fuck Cox.
Miggity, Mac Daddy. Yeah. Tell us how you feel.
Well, that's it, man. I just, these fucking people drive me nuts. But I'm here. That's all that matters. I think the over can still get there in this Alabama game. I don't have any bet. You know what the game, like you were talking about just a minute ago, I don't want to get to all of them. We'll just finish up. Is, of course, I like a team with the better defense with St. Mary's. But the problem is with them now on a neutral laying 5, basically. Because I think Vandy, has enough to hang around. That's the lone thing, because I think they could win this game. I kind of
worry about Vandy in this matchup, but I can't bet again.
Yeah, the matchup isn't great.
Team. Yeah,
but I just like St. Mary's. Kind of different. And to tell you, they're a very good team, but St. Mary's didn't play anybody.
Right.
Kind of during the year. We talk about this all the time with Gonzaga. They did like kill a bad SC team early on in the year. They beat Nebraska by 3. And I love them and love their defense. this is a game I don't know if I get involved with at all.
Lipscomb Bisons and Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State 14.5-point favorites, 143. In the past, we have seen some of these ASUN tournament teams pull upsets. I remember Mercer against Duke years ago when Coach K was still around. And, there's been examples of some of these ASUN teams being Florida Gulf Coast. I remember when they beat Georgetown, Dunk City, that team. They were an ASUN team as well at the time. They still are. And I love me some Iowa State, but I am concerned about the Keyshawn Gilbert injury. It's massive. It's a big deal. It's already a team that at times, especially when you get them outside of Hilton, they didn't always play that great. I mean, I don't think they're going to lose this game, but yeah, I think it could be a trickier game than you would think. I mean, Lipscomb lean, Nick, exactly. I don't know if I'm betting Lipscomb, but I'm kind of leaning in that way because of the injury concerns with Iowa State right now. CMAC, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to be fading Iowa State. I think they win this game. Of course, just they have enough, but he's just too big of a, I mean, for a guy that holds on
That
the
puts a
ball
lot on
that
Taylor
much.
Lipsey's plate, and he hasn't had as good a year this year as he did last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm here for it. Lipscomb, I'll take the 15 with them. 14.5. I think they can hang around that in this game. They can hit shots, and I thought they played a lot better as the year went on, too. They're a little bit struggle out in non-conference, but if they get to the free throw line, they're a decent team from there. And if they get some threes, they can definitely. It's just Iowa State still, even with Gilbert out, I mean, better team with the better defense, but I don't know if they're covering this.
Troy and Kentucky. We've got Kentucky 11.5-point favorites, 152 the total in this game. This should be an interesting battle because Kentucky with Mark Pope, they're going to get out in the open floor, push the pace, transition game, and then you're going to get Scott Cross, who does a great job with this Troy team, coaching them, trying to slow things down, make it a more of a half-court type of affair. So it's going to be kind of a pace war here in this game. Troy, I like Troy a lot. I thought Troy had a chance to win the Sun Belt tournament. They did just that. You look at the fact that in the non-con, they tested themselves. They played Toledo, Arkansas, Oregon, Houston. They played all of those teams in non-conference action. They only lost by 20 at Houston. And I still think Houston's better than Kentucky. I think the thing to watch for here in this game involving Kentucky is, the status, obviously, of Butler. I think he's going to play. He's off the injury report from what I've seen. I think they expect him to be in there, but we'll have to wait and see on that to make 100% sure. But again, that's a big reason why they blew the game against Oklahoma, because of the problems with the ball handling and the point guard at the end, and not having Lamont Butler in that game, which was a huge deal. So this is one where that's a big deal to me because this is a kind of a pressure defense that Troy will throw at you. And if they're having issues again at the guard spot, Troy could maybe hang around and make this a bit of a scary game for Kentucky. But I'm just waiting on the confirmation of whether he's in or not. Either way, I'm kind of leaning to Troy here, plus 11.5 in this one. CMAC, what do you think here with Troy and Kentucky?
I don't know here in this game because the good Kentucky, I think, wins by 15 or 20. Yep. And it's I just don't know if we're going to get that. Troy has to slow this down and kind of make this a low scoring type game. And still, they're not a good team offensively. They just aren't. They don't shoot the ball well. They're not that great inside, but they're gritty. They got here. I just think the talent is a big difference. It's just Kentucky. Are they going to play with their food here in this first matchup after getting the 3 seed, which I still think is great? Yeah. Talked about that.
That's an interesting.
Maybe they were 5 or 6. That's all after all the losses.
Yeah, this one's a variance game for sure. I mean, I could see multiple scenarios here. And like I said, now remember, Kentucky with Calipari fell short. And I thought there were times where there was zero adjustment from Calipari, and you do the same shit and no adjustment, and he paid the price for it because the other team knew what was coming. Mark Pope won't be that same kind of fool. Mark Pope is a quality coach. So if something's not working early, he's going to try to fix and make adjustments and do something different.
He's not a guy with a ton of success, though, in the tournament.
Yes, that's true. He had an early exit with BYU as well. I get it. But like I said, it can't be any worse than what Calipari did the last few years. So I still think it's addition by subtraction that they've got Pope there. We'll see how he fares here in his first tournament game. All right, Liberty and Oregon. We've got Oregon 7-point favorites, 139.5 the total in this game. One of my cardinal rules in the NCAA tournament is when Oregon and Dana Altman are in the tournament, I do not bet against them. Doesn't mean I'm betting on them every game, but I'm not fading them. So right away, I'll tell you this right now. It's either I lay it with Oregon or I don't bet the game. Liberty, credit to them. This is a better Liberty offensive team than we've seen in years past. With Richie McKay, they've been a team that struggled to put the ball in the basket in years past, but have been of excellent defensive team. They've actually kind of changed their spots. Now they're shooting the ball as well as any Liberty Flames team that I've seen in years. When they get Colin Porter and Zach Cleveland and Caden Matheny going, look out. I mean, they're very dangerous, this Liberty team. But you look at certainly I agree with everything they're saying in the chat too. Yes, this is in Seattle, Climate Pledge Arena. This is going to be really close to Oregon, state of Washington. So a situational and location edge big time for Oregon here in this game. And we have seen Dana Altman win multiple NCAA tournament games with Oregon in the past. We've seen him do it many times. So people looking for, hey, Ian, are you going to finally endorse a favorite? This is one favorite I would endorse. Oregon or pass for me. I don't bet against Dana Altman in the tournament. C-Mac, what do you think here? Liberty, Oregon.
This one's tough for me. I think this one could go either way. This is a classic number with Oregon, 7.5. I kind of think they wear Liberty down, but this is the problem with this team. It's been different with Liberty. They got snipers. You're talking about this team can hit threes. I mean, I think they're top 10, right? I mean, they're almost 40%
shooting team. Yes,
8th during the year, and they chuck them up
9%. Yep, 8th.
Yeah, they shoot a ton, 27 a game. They make 10.
Oregon's pretty good defending it, though. That's my concern.
They're pretty good. Yeah, that's what I think they could kind of wear them down.
Yep.
And kind of just win this game. Because this matchup is but it's just everything that you mentioned.
At the free throw line, too. That could be the difference, too.
Well, it's one of those weird teams.
76 for Oregon.
Yeah, that shoot the three well and they can't hit free throws. Strangest thing I've ever fucking. Don't get it. It makes 0 sense. So, yeah, Liberty's going to catch them all. I kind of lean Oregon as well, but I don't know if I bet this.
The only reason I didn't is I missed the 5, and it went up to 7 very quickly on Sunday night. And so that's the only reason I didn't bet. I haven't bet it yet. I'm waiting to see if maybe it comes down a bit, that people get enamored by Liberty before tip-off on Friday. If it does, I might add Liberty or Oregon.
Well, it's the classic 7 spot,
I'd have to lean over because Liberty's this crazy over machine all of a sudden. Like I said, the defense is not like it used to be, but they're better offensively than they've ever been, at least in the last several years. They've gone over in 6 straight games, Liberty, 6 straight overs for Liberty coming into this game. So I do lean a little bit over 139.5. I would not be surprised if it gets there. All right, next up we've got, as we continue along here, Akron and Arizona. This is definitely an interesting matchup here. We've got the Zips and the Wildcats. Arizona, 14.5 point favorites, 162.5 the total. This is my over right here. I don't even care that it's that high, 166.5. This is going over the total. Akron's going to play fast. John Gross is a great offensive team. Arizona, we know they're always going to play fast, push. Tommy Lloyd, disciple of Mark Few from his Gonzaga days. That's the way they both play. Pace galore. As long as the shots are falling and no one's falling into a 20%, 25% shooting day, I just don't know how this game doesn't at least get into the 170s. And we saw Akron, obviously, they've played a lot of higher scoring games in the MAC, and now they've got to deal with, an Arizona team that's just, I would say double or triple the amount of certainly athleticism and certainly offensive firepower. So more than anything, I like this over the total. But because there's going to be, I think, a lot of points both ways, in a high-scoring game like this, I don't really feel comfortable laying 14.5 with Arizona. I think they definitely win. I don't think Akron defensively has the chops to pull an upset, but they can score enough to stay inside this number. We'll see if they do, but I definitely like the over more than anything here. C-Mac, what do you think?
I don't know how. I mean, because Akron's just gone. They don't play any defense anymore. I mean, they've just been that good kind of offensively for the most part.
Yeah, I worry this is like 98-80 in this game, where they score 80 Akron, but they give up 98. That kind of a game.
Yeah, I mean that could be right. Like, I kind of think Arizona covers here. I'm not like crazy about it because all year I thought they've gotten better in certain spots. Their defense and the numbers show. We've been mentioning, but Akron can score. They're not going to make any stops, but I think they could definitely, and that could keep them around in this game. So there definitely will be points. So, yeah.
I would agree with that. All right, next up, and this is the other team I mentioned. I mentioned that, look, we saw it with San Diego State last night. It's looking bleak the last 2 years in this tournament for the Mountain West. These teams just have not played very well. That being said, I made a case for New Mexico a little bit against Marquette, just saying that, hey, Richard Pitino is going to get some assistance from his old man, Rick Pitino, how to scout, how to shut down Marquette. I think that does matter. And that will help New Mexico in that game. The little father-son tete-a-tete, like I said, Rick trying to help out his kid and how to deal with playing against Marquette. I think that's an advantage for New Mexico. Not that they're going to win because of that, but it does help New Mexico a little bit that Richard can reach out to Pops and say, hey, Pops, you beat Marquette twice this year in the Big East, or 3 times, whatever it was. How do we beat them now? And he'll be able to help them out. This game, I just feel Colorado State's a better team and better coach right now. Like, I'll take Nico Medved over Penny. Nico Medved's done a phenomenal job with this group. Plus, there's the injury of Tyrese Proctor here for Memphis. He's already ruled out here for the Memphis Tigers in this game. And yeah, okay, they rallied and they beat UAB in the AAC championship game without him. I think this is going to be harder. I mean, I get it. If you're scared to take Colorado State because of the Mountain West struggles in the NCAA tournament last year, and because of what we saw from San Diego State last night getting obliterated by North Carolina, I get it. I totally understand it. This conference is not playing well in this tournament right now. But you cannot just put a broad paint, with a broad brush on everything. You've got to look at that matchup by matchup.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I just love the way the Rams are playing right now. I just do. And I think if they play that way, they can get past Memphis, especially Memphis with no Proctor in the lineup. C-Mac, what do you think here?
Yeah, you got to look at it. I mean, it's the truth. I don't want them all really, but before last night, which I talked about, they didn't hit shots. A shout out to North Carolina. I mean, they couldn't miss. I mean, they were gonna lose to many teams last night.
C-Mac. New Mexico and Colorado State this year, they're better teams than San Diego State. Let's be real, they are.
Yeah, this year. No, yeah, for the most part, especially down the stretch a little bit. Maybe not early on in the year, but Colorado State. I'm not high on this Memphis team, as they've always been a favorite, and we love fading them. I think this game just goes over. I'm just going to take the over in this game. I just think it gets there. We get there with fouls, stuff like that. And I think you roll with Colorado State. Like, this is the one team to back. And now they basically just have to win the game here. I think they could get it done in this one. And we'll see. Like, just turnovers. I just think Memphis is sloppy, as good as Haggerty and a few of those guys are, that could get red hot and, of course, keep them in it. I mean, Clifford, this guy, talk about
neat Clifford,
unreal
man.
play.
Watch this guy. He's going to be an NBA player, I think, this guy. That's how good he is.
But the turnaround this year, especially the second half in the conference play, has just been crazy. Like, look at these games, 24-26, 25-36, 15-26. I mean, down the stretch, he's just been a monster. And not that he was solid, but he was scoring 12 points a game last year. But
it mirrors the red hot finish. The red hot finish is a parallel.
Yeah, he's
Clifford just becoming a completely different animal down the stretch.
Yeah. So over, and I think Colorado State can win the basketball game.
Come on, Mountain West, you got to come through for us here.
One fucking game, because we talked about yesterday. I don't really like Utah State, but I didn't really love the line there. I kind of lean UCLA.
Historically, doesn't mean Colorado State is a lock. Let me stress that. But historically, when a 12 seed opens as a favorite over the 5 seed, the 12 seed is won more often than not. I can tell you that right now. Doesn't mean that this means Colorado State's going to win for sure. But those instances when the 12 seed's favored over the 5 seed, oftentimes the 12 seed gets it done. Hopefully that's the case here with Colorado State. All right, our final game for the Friday NCAA tournament first round slate, Grand Canyon. Here's another team looking to make a deeper run than they made last year in the tournament against Maryland. Maryland 10.5-point favorites, 150 the total in this game. Of course, this is a team that was in the dance last year, Grand Canyon, but now looking to take another step here this year. I always went back and forth. Was last year's Grand Canyon team better, or is this year's Grand Canyon team better? Obviously, last year they beat St. Mary's in their first tournament game, and then they lost to Alabama by 11 in the round of 32. We'll see if they can get past their first round game for a second straight year. Maryland, obviously, a very solid season overall. They just renewed the contract of Kevin Willard as head coach, led, of course, by Derek Queen, Rodney Rice, Jacoby Gillespie. A very solid team, really good offensively. They started off the year terrific defensively. Defense did kind of struggle later in the year. Meanwhile, Grand Canyon, winners of the WAC, very impressive team when they're fully healthy. They've got, obviously, Tyon Grant Foster leading the way, who's going to be an NBA player. But it's not just him. They've got Jacoby Coles. They've got Malik Williams. They got Colin Moore. They got Duke Brennan, who's that big, lanky white kid. Ray Harrison. I mean, that's a really, really well-rounded team. They're solid at the defensive end of the court. This team won a first-round game last year. You're really, as much as I like what Maryland's done this year, you're really going to tell me they're going to win by 11 or more against a team that is going to come into this tournament knowing we can win at least one game, because they did it last year when they beat St. Mary's in the first tournament game. I think I have to take 10.5 here with Grand Canyon, and think this game is more competitive than this point spread indicates. Lean to the over here as well. Wouldn't be surprised if we see some points. Maryland was, oddly enough, a pretty crazy over team this season, and especially down the stretch. Let me see if I can get the exact numbers. 18 and 14 over for Maryland this year, but most of those were, the back half of the season. So this could be a game maybe that gets into the 150s here. C-Mac, what do you think? Grand Canyon, Maryland.
This one's tough. I think Grand Canyon can hang around, and I'm high on this Maryland team. Like, they get by here. Yep. I think they get Sweet 16, Elite 8. Can Maryland 8, and when they get scoring, but I think Grand Canyon's kind of ready here for them. So I'm leaning them plus the 11 here. I think they're in this game.
Good stuff. Saturated. Good to see you. Memphis, talent-wise, they've got it, and we saw what they did in non-conference, especially in Maui. They had some really good games there, good results. I get it, but there's something about them. Dane Danger, they always say you enter the dangers. He's going to have to play well for Memphis, especially with Proctor sidelined. They still take bad shots. They turn it over. They get a little sloppy sometimes. Defense kind of lacks at times. There's just some bad habits in Memphis's game that I see, and I think that could make them vulnerable. But talent-wise, they've got it saturated. I'll say that. The ceiling is still high for them. Like, if they beat Colorado State on Friday, they could be in a Sweet 16 or even an Elite 8. They could get that far, but they've got to, I think, get rid of some of these bad habits I see too often from this team in their games in order to do that. Plus, they don't have killer instinct half the time. They let teams hang around. They're always, it seems, down to the wire at the end. Actually, it's funny. They finally showed some, hey, let's put this game to bed when they beat UAB last Sunday. But really outside of that,
they did. Hey, the over, there's a basket. It didn't get there, and they held off. UAB kind of didn't help that in the second half.
Yeah.
But it was so big, they were able to run up the clock with 40 seconds left. It was just, if it was a little closer, we would have got those fouls,
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, so Memphis, they're one of those teams that I wouldn't rule it out that they can get to the second weekend. I wouldn't even be. I know, as obviously, I wouldn't be shocked if they lose to Colorado State on Friday, because I like Colorado State in that game. So yeah, there's definitely a plethora of possibilities. In my opinion, for Memphis in this tournament. All right, great stuff. Great show. Great week of shows. It'll be nice to have tomorrow and Friday off. We'll sit back. We'll enjoy the tournament games unfold, but we will be back. We've got you covered for the round of 32, Saturday and Sunday. Make sure you join us. 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday. We'll be here for the round of 32. Very much looking forward to that. No question about it. All right, C-Mac, best bets for this show. Could be anything. Could be one of the Friday NCAA tournament games. You can go to a game tonight from tonight's card for the Wednesday slate. Whatever you want, C-Mac. Best bet. The floor is yours.
I'll give you Friday, just one we just talked about. It's going over. Colorado State, Memphis. Over 147. Do I have a flat? 146.5.
Yes.
Over 146.5 there in that game. I have Fremantle over 17.5 points tonight. I think he gets there in that game. That's it. Also, NIT. I have different feelings with NIT kind of every year, but I think who I just totally backed the last few games, George Mason. I think it could be sleepy as good as they are. I think Samford can hang around in that game. Just to throw it out there.
That's probably one of my favorite sides tonight in the NIT.
Okay,
to be honest with you.
I didn't want to go crazy. And the NIT,
George Mason. Yep.
Yeah, I think Samford's in that game.
By the way, other than Kent State, St. Bonaventure, other than that one game, every game went over the total last night in NIT action. Every game. So, like I said, these first round games, hard to bet unders. It's a loose atmosphere. Defense doesn't tighten up until later in the tournament. So, beware of unders tonight in the NIT is what I would say. Although all of them the totals have gone up pretty much in every game. Like people are catching on to this, that these games go over the total, these first round NIT.
Yeah, they're starting to shoot up. Some of them are crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Remember, my Monday show best bet goes tonight. Remember Monday on the show, I gave you Xavier, Texas, over 149. 12-1 run to the over for Texas coming into tonight in the first four. And that total's gone up. I got a good number, 149. That's half the battle. It's got to win now, but the total's gone up to 151.5 since I got in on it at 149. So that was my Monday best bet for Xavier, Texas over. For this show, best bet, I'm also going to go to a Friday NCAA tournament game. Some good options on the menu for Friday. But I think I'm going to rock with that. Let me just see here. Oh, boy. I really like that total in Akron, Arizona. It's high for a reason. I think it goes over that number. 166 is the best number out there right now. I think, like I said, 98-80, something like that. It wouldn't shock me if that ends up being the score in that game. A lot of points there. Akron, Arizona, over 166. We're going to go with that for my Friday best bet. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Hope you enjoyed the week of shows. And again, we're back on the weekend for you, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific for the round of 32 NCAA tournament previews. Nick Alvento, Keebs, Dram Yankee, Old E, Justin McKelvey, Saturated, Ross Pitts, Julian Cesario, Jorge Herrera, Keebs, everyone in the chat, Jay Kong's. Good to see Kong's Clips in the chat. Hope you're doing well. Good luck to you in the tournament. And everyone else joining us, hit that like button. Guillermo Zertucci, good to see him in the chat. Redbeard, everyone joining us here. Nunya, good to see you as well, an old friend from the Pub Sports Radio channel. Spoons Bets, Morgan Spooner as well. We appreciate you guys tuning in and joining us. Hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Good luck with all your wagers. Enjoy the madness the next 2 days. We'll be back with you on Saturday. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. Enjoy the first round of the tournament on Thursday and Friday, and we will be back with you Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, for another edition of the College Basketball Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.
Dismissed.